What's going on, guys? My name is Timo, and today we're going to be talking about something that most car and motorcycle guys are interested in. And no, I'm not talking about a bigger turbo. I know you guys are probably surprised you have a little bit more in common than just one thing, but we're going to be talking about sponsorships. Obviously, most of you know that sponsorships are a great way to finish a build or get a build started, but we got to talk about the different types of sponsors so we know what we're looking for and the best way to go about getting sponsors for your car and motorcycle. We got to start off with understanding the types of sponsorships that are out there, and so we can decide what we're actually wanting. The first is the most common that people think about, being a full sponsorship. Typically, a full sponsorship means that a company is going to provide you with a product or a service completely free of charge. In exchange, you're going to be taking your vehicle or motorcycle to events or shows so that you can show off that product on behalf of the company. Then we have a partial sponsorship, which is something people are definitely going to come across once they start actually reaching out for sponsorships. And that's where a company offers you a discount or gives you a product temporarily so that you can take it to a certain amount of shows or maybe even a single show or event, also just to show off that product and try to drive up hype. And lastly, we have this type of sponsorship that I recommend people avoid, and that'd be the sponsorships that you see on Facebook, Instagram, things like that, where it's a company advertisement saying that they offer sponsorships and that you can apply. Now, the thing with these sponsorships is that pretty much everyone that applies actually gets approved, and obviously you're not going to know that. But once you apply, you're going to get an email that says you were approved, and most of the time they're going to give you a discount code, and they're going to tell you that, hey, once you use this discount code to buy something on our website, we're going to give you another discount code to put on your socials for all your followers to use. And the thing about these sponsorships is that they're actually just a marketing strategy for these companies to drive up sales. The fact that they require you to spend money before even letting anyone else benefit off the code or really giving you the sponsorship should be a red flag enough for most people. But the reason these sponsorship programs thrive is the people's need to just be included and feel like they got their first sponsorship. For a lot of people just getting into the car and motorcycle community, this probably is their first sponsorship until they learn the ropes. And unfortunately, all they're doing is getting cheap products, because even with the discounted price that they're giving you, the company's still making money. And if you do a little bit of research, you're going to see that a lot of those same products are even cheaper than the discounted price you're paying somewhere else. Now that we understand the types of sponsorships, that lets us know what we're looking for once we actually start reaching out. Now, when you're actually reaching out to companies, you want to come with a plan. You don't want to just shoot them an email saying, hey, give me free part. That's not how it works, and a lot of these companies get hundreds of those emails every week. What you want to do is come with a plan. You want to take a look at your build and try to pick out what makes it stand out or why they should choose you specifically. Once you figure that out, you need to write it down and make a little summary about your build, everything that's done to it now. If the build isn't finished, include a timeline of when it's going to be done. Because if a company is going to send you a part, they definitely don't want it just sitting in your garage for a year or two and they're not getting any return on the free part that they just gave you. Secondly, you want to include what area you live in and what type of shows and events you're going to be attending. Because if you live in the middle of nowhere and that's all you say, they're probably not going to want to send you a part out in the middle of nowhere. But if you include that you're going to be traveling all over half of the US to attend big shows, that might be something that draws them in. And it also gives them an estimate of what type of return they might be expecting and what type of demographic their part is going to be displayed to at these different events. And ultimately, that's what's important to them. These companies aren't just giving you a free part because they like your car. For them, it's an investment into marketing. And if you look at it from the company's point of view, they're not going to want to give someone free money in the form of a part if they're not going to be taking it to any events and all you do is shoot them an email saying, hey, I go to my local Cars and Coffee on Saturdays and I daily it to work. Is that going to be worth giving you a part, whether it only be $100 or maybe even a couple $1,000 if it's a set of wheels or a turbo or something like that? You have to find the value in yourself, in your project, before you reach out to these companies, because that's what they're going to be looking for. These companies need value brought back in by giving you this part. So now that we figured out how to come to these companies with a plan, now we need to be realistic. We have to understand that hundreds of people are reaching out to these companies for sponsorships every single week. So you need to be realistic about what sets you apart and what you're going to be able to offer, because if they deny you or turn you down temporarily, you have to understand that it's because somebody came with something better. Now, unfortunately, this is where it can get kind of real, because sometimes you just don't have the right car to reach the demographic that that company is looking for. If you have one of the more common cars in the scene, say a Civic or a Subaru, it's going to be a little bit tougher because you're competing with such a large crowd, and it's possible that they've already given out a lot of sponsorships, or maybe your car just isn't at the point of what they're looking for because they're trying to drive sales with what's considered more the crazy builds or the eye-catching builds. That can also work against you too, because if you have a crazy exotic car or you have a car that's very one of a kind and they're providing you with a part, it might not have a large demographic or even be able to drive enough sales. Imagine you drive something like a Lotus. There's not a lot of people in the market for a Lotus, and there's not a lot of them out there in the first place. So there's a good chance that a sponsorship on something like a Lotus might not happen just due to the low market size. It's just how it goes sometimes. And that leads me into the challenges of motorcycles. I feel that sponsorships for motorcycles are a lot harder to get because it's a little bit harder to be unique. And I know there's a million things you could do to be unique with a motorcycle, but when it comes down to the people that actually manufacture parts, there aren't a ton like there are for cars. For a majority of motorcycles out there, it's the same companies that make exhaust for all the different bikes. So the brands are already really well known. So you need to have a great application when you reach out to these companies to explain the value you're bringing. And I just feel that that market's a little bit tougher for motorcycles. It's obviously not impossible and it never hurts to try, but you just have to make sure you come prepared. And I'm sure a sponsorship is gonna be on your way, whether you have a car or a motorcycle. If you do the things that we talked about and you come to the company with a plan, you're realistic about the situation and you understand what value you provide to them, I'm sure you guys are gonna be successful with getting some free or discounted parts for your project. And that's gonna wrap it up for me. I look forward to seeing your guys' projects. If you guys have any cars or motorcycles you guys want me to judge, shoot them to the email that's gonna pop up on screen. And when I get enough, I'll be throwing out a video with that. It'll either be a rate or roast, kind of just depends on how I'm feeling that day. Probably a rate because I'm sure you guys are gonna shoot me some awesome projects. But until the next video, guys, I look forward to seeing you.